Hey everybody, it's Michael here from Replica Airguns with a comparison video of two very different products that probably should never be compared together because they are sort of at the extreme ends of the spectrum for each device. Other than them both being crossbows, shooting arrows, bolts, what have you, they are kind of extremely different. And so I thought, let's compare these guys, even though it doesn't make sense because for some people, you might want something at one extreme, like this guy for hunting, larger game, or something that's more for, really potentially small game, right? You could use the M10, the Steambow M10 for small game, but it's really more going to be kind of for fun, shooting at targets, just having some fun with, especially if you're shooting the rubber ball version, you could do that as well, right? So we are going to basically compare them kind of head to head, and maybe, if neither one fits you, then you might be somewhere in the middle. You might want to find a product that fits in the middle, because definitely, if you want to do some bigger game, medium to big game hunting, and you can go right up to elk with this AT400 by CenterPoint if you wanted to. But it's a lot more work. It's a more dedicated product, something you're not going to be able to shoot as often or have just some fun with. It's something you're going to intentionally shoot for a purpose. In terms of price, they're both kind of in the same ballpark because this is a very specific product. You'd think, way more power and all that stuff. This bigger product. This is going to be a lot more expensive, but there's a lot of kind of engineering and stuff. It's a very niche market for something like this Steambow for sure. So we're going to go through my little cheat list here. We're going to compare them and kind of talk about some of the benefits and disadvantages of each, because there's definitely that. And at the end of the day, you might even decide, hey, I want one of each because I want something at the one extreme and I want something just to have fun with. So let's kind of break it down. We'll kind of show some stuff as I go through here. I'm going to have to put these guys down so I can kind of read them, read through my list here. Yeah, so I'm sorry, I got a bit of a hoarse voice today, so I might be clearing my throat a little bit. That's just the way it goes. So these two crossbows, they shouldn't really be compared. Let's get that out of the way, and that's what I already said. So we have the Steambow M10, which is a bolt, so it's a smaller arrow, and I'll show what they look like at the end of the day. And it actually has, I believe it's a 10 capacity magazine, something like that, 8 to 10 shots. Magazine fed, so it's cool. You can actually get magazines, load them up, pop them in there. It's pretty neat. With a very quick cocking, you kind of it's like a brake barrel almost thing, but you break the stock instead of the barrel and you move the whole body down. I'll kind of give you a quick example of that. I'm not going to do it entirely, but you can quickly reload it in less than a second, within a second for sure. Get off 10 shots in potentially 10 seconds and have a lot of fun. Whereas with the AT400 by CenterPoint, you are not going to get a second shot off probably for another minute or so once you crank it up, because it's definitely a much more of a process to pull this 200-pound draw weight back, right? So that's kind of going to be a con for that one for sure. One's going to be obviously way more compact, lightweight. Obviously the M10 way more compact and lightweight. Again, the price is the same, but they're very different products. One again is designed for fun, the M10, whereas the CenterPoint AT400, it's full-size compound hunting crossbow. It's a single shot, really. It's not a multi-shot. Has high power, and again, it's designed for hunting and serious use, and not just medium game, but you can get right up to larger game. I wouldn't do moose or bear or anything like that, but you could potentially do elk. If you're proficient in using it, you've dialed in your aim, you know your distances, you know how to get that shot where you need to place it safely and humanely, then you could use it for something even like elk. That goes for anything you're shooting. You want to make sure it's humane, right? So let's talk about the use case purposes we kind of already have. With the M10, you're going to be basically doing more, potentially you could do backyard shooting because there's a lot less energy coming out of it. It's not going to go as far and through bushes and things. If you've got a decent backstop, you're going to be fine. You got that high repetition. You can do drills. You can do like almost tactical kind of situations and have fun and really hone your skills and get quick at shooting it. Get better at that because there is a learning curve for sure. And also, it's a lower commitment because you know you're not having to get to buy all the backstops and go out, you know, to say the forest to shoot it or something, because you're not going to want to shoot the AT400 by CenterPoint in your backyard unless you live on acreage or something. And even then, an arrow could get way out ahead. You know, if you miss your target, you got to watch where that's going at the end of the day. Make sure nothing behind it's going to be a problem or an issue. Okay, so yeah, so it's not really for casual backyard use, and it's not a multi-shot device at all. You got one shot, then you gotta either like use these little handle pulley things, which you gotta set up and hook on different areas and pull it, or you put the actual winder. There's a winding device that you can put to crank it up, because 200 pounds of draw is really heavy, obviously, okay? So again, the M10 is more for fun shooting, backyard shooting. The AT400, again, is more for serious hunting purposes. So let's talk about power, because you probably want to know, like, what's the big advantage? Obviously, you got not just how many rounds you can shoot, but you have the power situation. So with the M10, it's going to get a max of, let's just say you can get up to 200 feet per second. That's using like a 90-pound bow. It comes, I believe, with a 15, potentially up to 35-pound. Those are the standard ones you're going to use. But with a bolt, you can use heavier limbs, and you can put those on. They are going to be harder to crank and going to take more effort, but you can get more energy up to about 200 feet per second. So that's not too bad. And that's going to give you an energy of up to 10 to 15 joules using the heavier the stronger limb with the more basically pounds of draw weight, right? So typically, like for instance, this guy, I believe, comes with a 15-pound. This is the rubber ball version. So you put rubber balls in. It's kind of neat because you've got this magazine that you put, I believe it's, yeah, 68 caliber paintballs or rubber balls in it. And this one's a lot of fun because, you know, you don't have to worry about breaking arrows. If you lose a rubber ball or something, it's not super expensive. It's just a lot of fun. And it's got this shoulder brake design like all of the Steambow products do. They all do this. So you can just shoot, boom, right? It's like super fast. And with a 15-pound limb on it, it's super easy to crank. And that's all you need for short range target, right? So you can go up to 35 pounds. You don't go super heavy with the rubber ball one because the rubber balls are so light, it's kind of almost like dry firing it. If you go too heavy with a limb, it's like you're dry firing a little bit. So you're going to want a heavier bolt with a 90-pound limb. You're going to want to go as heavy as you can with that bolt in something like the M10. So here's the bolt, for instance, right? And so this can get up to 10 grams. That's the heavier bolts. Maybe, I think, up to 15, something like that. But they do get a little heavier. When you're looking at the CenterPoint AT400, this is like a carbon arrow, so it's a lightweight arrow, and it still weighs about 20 grams. So it's much heavier, much larger. And because it's heavier and larger, you get more energy downrange, and because it's actually traveling a lot faster, this is going like 400 feet per second. So when you're talking power, 400 feet per second, up to 200 feet per second with a 10 to 15 gram versus a 20 gram plus arrow. So way more energy, close to 150 foot-pounds of energy. You're talking, again, up to maybe 10 to 15 foot-pounds of energy with something like this at its max velocity and max draw weight. So definitely power, you know, and that's why obviously you can hunt larger game. You can get deer, you can even go up to elk with something like this. Now you're going to probably want to use a different arrow tip. You can take these arrow tips out and you can pop in different arrow tips. For hunting, you're going to want a hunting arrow tip, but this would be good for just target practice, getting everything sighted in and all of that. Okay, so I think we've kind of covered that. And the comparison here would be the M10 is probably going to be more like, again, it's more like an air gun, BB gun in terms of power, up to a paintball type power rating, whereas the AT400 is more like shooting, it's like a deer rifle, right? Maybe not quite as much energy as an actual, you know, like say 7mm rifle, deer rifle or something like that, but it's definitely gonna hit hard and do a lot of damage and get the job done if you use it humanely at the right distances and everything. So again, ammo capacity. With the AT400, you do have the quiver, which holds 3 arrow in it, right? So you've got them ready to go. You could put one in the gun or one in the crossbow up top here, have that in there and have 3 more arrows. So you've got 4 arrows on you. But again, you're gonna have to like put it down on the ground, stick your foot in there, put the little pulley thingy on there and do this pull and lock it in, or put the crank on there, the winch, I guess you'd call it, and winch it up. This all takes time, you know, we're talking maybe even minutes, you know, depends on how proficient you are at it, versus the M10, which is like the little paintball version. So this has got the heavier, you can tell this has got a heavier draw. This is probably the 35 pound or something like that. Definitely heavier than the paintball version. And so this, you just do this little cock, shoot, cock, shoot, cock, shoot. And this magazine on it is loaded with 10 bolts in it, and you just pop it in and shoot, right? So you could have a bunch of these guys and just keep going. You've got the sling mount, you could drop it down. So a lot of fun, not really meant specifically for hunting, but with the stronger limb on it and the right arrows, then you could for sure, maybe heavier arrows, you could shoot some small game with this. Again, you know, you could even put like a little red dot on here for accuracy, so you could get some pretty accurate shots with it and use it for small game, okay? So 10 shots versus 1 shot, really quick reloading on the M10. Again, gonna take some time to get basically the crossbow re-engaged for the next shot with an arrow loaded in there as compared to the M10. So volume versus precision and power at the end of the day. I think we're back, now we're on to another page. We're getting through this pretty good here. So usability, effort. Again, the M10 is going to be way easier to cock. It doesn't require a lot of strength. So again, with the AT400, I mean, you're going to need some strength. Unless you're using that winch, if you're just pulling it up with the pulley cord system, then you're going to need some good lower. You're going to have a decent lower back. If you've got any back or posterior chain issues, you're not going to be using that method at all. So the M10, easy cocking, lightweight, 4 pounds pull, kind of that's what it feels like with the lower draw limbs. It's very beginner friendly, easy to use, minimal effort. Whereas the AT400 is going to have a high draw weight, 200 pounds. Again, you need the rope or the crank. It's physically demanding, and there's more setup time to shoot it just because it's going to take a lot longer between shots. And you got to bring these other items with you, whereas everything's self-contained. The cocking mechanism is self-contained in the M10, whereas you've got to bring the pulley cord or the crank with you and have that in your backpack or something at all times. So it's very physically demanding. Again, more setup time in between shooting. So the key line takeaway there is anyone can use an M10. The AT400 requires more commitment, a little more trading. You're going to have to learn how to become more efficient. Otherwise, you're just going to get tired trying to shoot this thing. All right, so size and handling. So it's very apparent that one is obviously going to take up a lot more space if you're trying to cart it around, right? Like, I wouldn't say you could really break this down too easily. I guess you could take the stock off. You could bring a tool, take the rear stock off, make it a little shorter. You could pull that limb out pretty easily as well and flatten it down. So yeah, I mean, you could definitely make this a lot smaller and fit into a backpack quite easy just by taking it apart. There's really only one screw in here to take that limb out. And when I was at the Steambow booth, they didn't even have a screw in there because they were interchanging these limbs. So you don't have to have the screw in there to use it. Once it's sort of pulled back, it stays in place pretty good once everything's closed up and everything. But it just locks it in there a little better. You know, it's not going to go anywhere, but you could not even bring that screw or use it. So super lightweight, more compact. You can break it down a little bit. You're not going to want to break this down. You could unscrew, there's like 3 screws, a bunch of screws in here you could do to take the limb off or the actual crossbow section off. But it's a one piece. It doesn't have a folding stock or anything. So it is what it is. This is kind of what you're going to have to deal with in the field. If you're carting it around, you're going to have to put it, you know, you can't really put it in a backpack or anything like that. It's going to have to go in the trunk of your car, I would say. But, you know, this is going to be more stable, longer, easier to shoot for long range shooting. You've got the stable platform. This is kind of lightweight, so it's going to move around a little bit. So there's that as well, right? But bulk, versus ease of use versus easy to carry around. You know, that it is what it is. So where am I at here? We're getting close. We're almost on the last page. So price. Both are going to be around $400 to $500. So price isn't a big deal. But if you want to factor price versus, like, my idea is price is one thing, but how much do you get to use something? If you don't use something very much, then is it worth the same price as something that you paid the same price for, but you use it all the time, right? Like, that's the way I look at things. That sometimes I sell stuff because I thought I was going to use it. I was super excited. I got the thing, and then I find I just didn't use whatever it was. Could be anything. Could be technology. Could be an air gun. Could be anything. Could be a car, motorcycle. You know, you're super excited. Maybe you use it initially, and then you kind of the novelty wears off, and then you find you really don't use it very much. That could be this. Like, you could have all the intentions in the world to go out and do all this hunting and stuff, and then you find you don't use it very much. Whereas something like the M10, you know, you can pull it out anytime, even in your basement, especially if you have the paintball version, the B08 version. It's the paintball version. That one's even easier, and you have probably more opportunities to use it because of the paintball. You're not so worried about breaking bolts, losing bolts. You can shoot it in a number of different places. You can use the lighter rubber foam type balls for indoor. You can use harder ones for outdoor. You could I mean, it's really versatile in how you want to use it. So because there's so many opportunities and different ways you can use it, you're probably going to get more value for the money spent, okay? So again, I think the value, again, depending on what you're going to do, right? Maybe you don't care. You don't want to plink. Maybe all you want to do is hunt. Then obviously the AT400 is going to be for you, especially if you get out and hunt often, several times a year. Then yeah, you're probably going to use it. So you have to decide. Again, maybe you fall somewhere in the middle. Maybe you want one of each, right? Why not have one of each? I think that's always a good way to go. Who should buy each? So at the end of the day, let's kind of break it down into who fits into each category. So if you're an M10 customer, this is kind of who you'd be. You'd want fun and fast shooting. You'd want to shoot often and get out there and use it as much as possible. You want low effort, right? You don't want to have to spend a lot of time cranking it and using a lot of effort. You just want ease of use. You want to be able to grab it and go and shoot it in a number of different places. You want that, you want to be able to do repetitive, fast action shooting, almost like tactical style shooting. That's who it's going to be for. You don't care so much about hunting. You don't care so much about raw power. That's not as important. Then the M10 is going to be for you. Now, if you're a hunter, then obviously, especially if it's medium to larger game, then don't even look at the M10. It's totally not going to work. You're going to have to look at something like the AT400. It doesn't have to be the AT400, but something, if you're shooting just deer size game, you could maybe go with something. You need about 200 to 250 feet per second for deer, in a similar style gun. You don't need 400 FPS, but it's nice to have the extra power. It's always better to have a little more power than be underpowered for sure. So that could be for you. If you care about range, if you care about accuracy, if you're okay with not having to be able to reload as quickly, you're not so worried about follow-up shots. Typically, with bow and arrow style, crossbow style hunting, you really only get that one shot, right? You get one shot. Typically, it rarely kills the animal right away. The animal barely even honestly, with arrows, the energy, a lot of times the arrows just go right through them. It's quite often the arrow goes right through them. They're like, what was that? They kind of run away. They don't know what, they feel like they got a bee sting or something because the arrows are so small and they just slice through. It's different. It's not like a gun that expands and mushrooms and causes all this raw energy to go into the animal. With a deer, with an arrow, the deer just goes right through, and it's like, it's weird, right? It runs away. It doesn't even know what happened. And all of a sudden, if you hopefully went through the heart or lung or clipped an artery, it just bleeds out really quickly within 100 or 200 yards, and you got to track it a little bit. That's just how hunting with a crossbow or an arrow works. And hopefully you got a good shot that took out something vital. And once you come upon the animal, it's bled out, it's passed away, and it's actually pretty humane. It sounds less humane than I'm making it sound. Like you just made an arrow go right through the thing, and it's like you'd think that would be worse than just getting pounded by some some bullet that just mushrooms and just damages it. Yeah, I mean, that could potentially just put lights out right away, especially a headshot. But even so, I don't know if you've watched many videos of things getting shot, people, deer, whatever. Sometimes, you know, we're pretty resilient, and even a good heavy round can sometimes take a little while to affect a person. So I don't know what's more humane. I've never been shot by a gun or with an arrow. I can't comment specifically, but from what I can see, I almost feel like an arrow would be more humane in some ways, because it's not going to feel it too much. It's just going to kind of bleed out, pass out, and that's the end, right? So you decide what you think. So final takeaway, they're really not competitors. They're in complete different categories. The M10 is used more often, probably more potential opportunities to use it. Less stress using it with, you know, with the AT400. You're gonna arrows, because they're going so fast, there's so much energy, you're gonna have to replace arrows no matter what tips you're using. Over time, they're gonna get damaged and lost. Whereas with something like the M10, all of these types of, they're a lot less expensive. They're, you know, unless you hit something really hard, you're going to be able to reuse these over and over again, or unless you lose them. And with the B08, you've got rubber ball or different things. Those are so inexpensive, you're not going to worry about it too much. So those are going to be, you know, the kind of guns you're going to use more often in more situations. The AT400 is, again, something you're going to use when it matters, for hunting. Very, very specific case use. You're not going to probably use it as often unless you hunt all the time. But, you know, it's not a crazy expensive thing, $400 or $500. If you're into bow hunting, then I think it's definitely a great option. Okay, so it's not about which one's better. It really comes down to which one's going to be more ideal for you, and which one essentially, you know, it kind of checks the boxes for you. And if neither one of these does, again, look at something in the middle. There's all kinds of, you know, products that are somewhere in the middle that are, you know, a little more powerful than the M10, but a little less powerful than the AT400. But you decide kind of which one fits you the best. All right, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and Vimeo, and YouTube, and all those places, depending on where you're watching this video. And we do have we do have both of these products in the Canada store typically, unless we're out of stock. So I'll put links in the description to buy them. We do have similar products, if not these ones exactly, over in the US store, over at replicaAirguns.us. And so if you're interested in other products, air guns, BB guns, airsoft guns, pellet guns, blank guns, and other accessories, then check out replicaAirguns.ca for Canada, replicaAirguns.us for the US, and yeah. And replicaAirguns.com for articles, posts, reviews, and additional information. So I'm not going to cock it because then I got to dry fire it. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.